I wanted to first take a moment to welcome you. I'm Robin Lauerman, and I teach the politics department here at Messiah. And this is our 7th annual Career Conversations in Politics. And we basically take each year a different kind of type of opportunity, broad type of work experience and vocational experience, which would be applicable for our majors and minors, and bring alums who have those kinds of experiences in so you can see some of the depth and intricacy in terms of opportunities. And so we have a great panel here today. First off, we have Chuck Zoltwitz, who works, you revert to old days, who works in the Department of Public Welfare here for the state government. Next is Breon Wells, who heads up his nonprofit Daniel Initiative. And then Megan Wolf, who works with the PEPFAR program and Garble, the actual placement, but it's the unit coordinator,
Research and Science Coordinator.
And then finally, Rebecca Gambler, who works for the Government Accountability Office, working in areas of both elections and homeland security. So we have a wealth of experience to share with you. Before we do so, though, a few remarks from Nick, who is our representative here from the Career Center and a very valuable collaborator in this process. The Career Center is co-sponsoring this event with us. And I have a few things to say, and then we will turn these over to the panelists.
Hi everyone, I'm going to talk very briefly, so don't worry, and I'm going to hopefully give you some information that's a great segue into the panel. So we're going to talk briefly about how, as a politics major, you can market your skills and experience and develop your resume effectively. So I have a couple tips for you. Tip 1 is to be intentional about your experiences while you're at college. Don't just coast through your 4 years here. It's no longer the case like it was when I graduated, where you could, have a degree from a 4-year college and be guaranteed a job. That's not true anymore. You want to make sure you have relevant experiences both in and out of the classroom. So instead of using your free time for this, which is fun, use your free time for this. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. Tip 2. Discover the experiential learning opportunities that are relevant to your major. And there's tons of things out there. I just listed 4 brief examples. Research experience, internships. How many have done an internship, by the way? Yay! Anyone else? Okay, very good. International experience, studying abroad for a semester, or maybe a May term or a day term. Anybody done that so far? Yay! Oh, clap for everybody's their hand. Yay! Okay. All right. And volunteering. There's great volunteer positions that are relevant to your field, and the Agape Center is a wonderful resource for that. Anyone volunteer through the Agape Center, or maybe on your own? Okay. Yay! Very good. Moving right along. It is not enough to just have these experiences, but you need to learn how to articulate what you've learned. And this is something we hear time and time again from employers and grad schools. It's very important to reflect and learn how to tell about your experiences and relate it to the person you're talking to. So here I have a picture of possibly a study abroad or a volunteer experience. So having that experience is great, but if you can't retell it and say why it's important to an employer or to grad school, it's not going to get you very far. So you have to work on the arrow, and what that means is how do you translate that when you're in an interview or a job setting? How do you learn how to package that experience? So for example, when I was a student here 50 million years ago, I went to Singapore and Malaysia for a J-term cross-cultural. And it was a phenomenal experience. But if I went to an interview and said to the person, I went to Singapore, they'd just look at me and, okay, great, move on. But if I could talk about what I learned there, how I interacted with people from the culture there, how I visited hospitals and clinics and daycares and nursing homes, and how that really impacted my profession when I was a psych major here, that makes a huge difference. So I'd like to ask real quick for one person that can be my guinea pig for this. I'm hoping someone's feeling really energetic.
Oh,
okay, thank you. Can you give me any experience that would fall under the category I put on the previous slide? Internship, volunteering, study abroad?
Any, like my personal?
Research, yes, your personal experience.
Missed a trip to Peru.
Okay, great. So if I was a employer that was going to hire you for an internship, what would you tell me about that experience? I would want to know about it.
I would tell you that I led this trip to Peru, so it gave me good leadership experience, and it was all in Spanish, so it really made me be independent and use the skills I had.
Great, that's wonderful. Thank you for volunteering today.
Yeah.
Yeah, yay, okay. Very important. All right, and then how do we take these experiences and translate them into a well-crafted resume? It's kind of unfortunate that all your awesome experiences boil down to a one-page resume, but that's how the job hunt and the grad school process can work. So there's some things to keep in mind. 3 really quick points. You want to tailor your resume for everything you're applying to. We have 4 people here that have very different, distinct jobs. If I was applying for those 4 jobs as a politics major, my resume would look different for every single position I was applying for. So you need to understand how you can craft your resume so that it looks different for each job you're applying for. Understand resume psychology. I love this part of resume development. A resume is considered a 10-second document because employers or grad schools look at it for literally 10 seconds or less to decide if they're going to keep it or pitch it. So you want what's most important to just jump out in that 10 seconds. And how do you do that? How do you craft it? Leads us to the 3rd point. Use the Career Center. We're here to help you. Stop by for a resume critique. We have drop-in hours Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon. You can come by for an appointment. You can use our online resources, but we're here to help you translate your experiences into a well-crafted resume and also help you with that arrow, help you learn how to talk about them through a mock interview. We do them anytime you want. Just call us for an appointment. So next steps, I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
Just 2 quick points for you to carry with you today, and these are items that you can follow up with, but I think it's just, again, very helpful to foreshadow where we're going to be going. So you realize that there's some great resources here and great opportunities, but part of it is figuring out where your match might be, major or minor, or somebody who maybe is even just taking a course or 2 in the process. So there's 2 resources I wanted to point out to you. Number 1, in terms of considering your options, oftentimes I get students who come in who are either exploring our major or for new students and say, well, I don't want to work for a political party. And not that there's anything wrong with doing that, that's just not their interest. And so we talk about the variety of different options. And just to show you very briefly, in terms of our students, our alums, over the last 10 years, these are the main kinds of sectors that they're working in. And so you can see that there are really 5 prominent ones, 2 in particular, but government constitutes about a third, but opportunities in business are significant because there are a lot of transferable skills there, certainly also law, nonprofit, and education. So one piece to point out in that respect, and you can find that on our politics website under the resource tab, but also to take an opportunity to take a look at the politics career plan. All of you who are current majors would have received either in your transition to the major or during advising week, the career and professional development plan. I just wanted to briefly highlight it. What we did as a department was to customize the template that the Career Center developed a couple of years ago and to focus on 4 stages. These stages are not necessarily related to the specific areas, whether you're first year, second year, but rather how committed you are or how deep you are into exploring. But what's nice about this plan is it gives you some ideas to actually test out and experience. They may not be as committed as spending a whole semester, but how to do things like shadow or how to come to events like this to first assess and identify what kinds of academic opportunities are appropriate for you, be able to try things out in your classes, and then get into experience, which were some of the different opportunities that Abby mentioned. And then finally, to be able to take, when you're graduating, I know we have some seniors here, seniors, neither are a few of you, to be able to take that and transition, whether grad school or employment is your next area. So I hope as you listen to our alums today that you will see some ways in which you can think about what you're doing today and how you can apply some of those ideas beyond this experience. So without further ado, we'll turn things over and we'll start with Brianna.
Hi, as she said, my name is Brianna Wells, and graduated in 2006. Politics, political science major, so I had a wonderful chance of being with Dr. Harles and Dr. Lauerman and Dr. Curry. immediately when I think my sophomore year, it took me a minute to figure out what I wanted to do. I double majored, which was a huge mistake, in political science and pre-med biology. Two totally, it made no sense. And so needless to say, I remained very busy, but it was actually when I went to Zambia in my junior year that I figured out, and after OHIM 1 and 2, that I could actually be more effective in helping to write policy on healthcare as opposed to being a doctor. And so when I had set my mind that that's what I wanted to do, definitely more fully embraced the political track. Enjoyed most of the classes. My favorite class was actually, as I was telling Megan today, was terrorism. I enjoyed that class with Dr. Harles. But definitely remember research methods and remember the molding experience that was. It was a good molding experience. But when I walked away from Messiah, at least I knew that I wanted to do something in the political sector. And when I finished and graduated, it took 6 months to find a job. And that might sound, depending on where you are, either short-term or long-term. It felt very long because I had bills to pay. One thing that I was adamant about, though, was staying true to my convictions. Not just settling for any job. And by any job, I'm not saying that internships or anything would beneath me, but just as a Christian, for me, some of my beliefs put on track what I would or would not accept when looking for jobs. And so that's the first thing I would definitely say. Stay with your convictions, whatever your passion is. Yes, you do want to be realistic, but at the same point, stay with your convictions, because it's very easy to lose oneself in the political track, and you find yourself maybe espousing to ideals that at the beginning you had no idea, or that you're trying to figure out how you got there. Immediately in getting to the Hill, I did an internship for Al Wynn of the 4th District of Maryland. And then as I was sharing with some of the people that came to the lunch, really capitalizing on the internship, making it the most. Yes, the internships, you're running around and getting coffee. Yes, you're making copies, and sometimes you can get in the mindset of, I've got a BA. Why am I doing these menial tasks? But however you handle that internship might just be the door that opens for your next step or promotion up. And so I went to all the hearings that nobody wanted to go to, went to all the, did the menial tasks that people didn't necessarily feel comfortable with, and was rewarded to be able to be an LC in Al Wynn's office, and then went to Bill Nelson of Florida's office, working on international relations and education policy, and then worked on the Committee on Armed Services, the Senate Armed Services Committee, which I think I enjoyed that the most, because I'm more of a policy person. I like to at least get an expertise in something. I would allow myself to work hard in one issue and really become good at it, as opposed to working in a personal office where you're tasked with a lot of different portfolios, and it's hard to really become a master of any. In February, I left the Hill last February, and went on the Obama campaign to work in North Carolina doing policy, faith and military policy in North Carolina. It was a good experience. I enjoyed the fruits of the labor of the campaign. I'm not necessarily a campaign type person, so I was quite happy when it was over at the same time. And then as well, I've done political consulting for a couple of nonprofits, and then the Daniel Initiative, which is what Dr. Lauerman would probably want me to expound on a little more. And the Daniel Initiative, I had really started that. As I said, my faith is really important to me, and I had started that based on the life of Daniel. He was somebody in the political sector. We actually studied his life. And often we struggle with what our place is in politics, what issues what side of the issues we should be on. Does that make me more or less of a Christian? We struggle with these things. And so, as well, it was Daniel's excellence. When you look at his life, it was Daniel's excellence that opened up the door for him. And it's quite fitting, as we're talking about resumes, we're talking about leaving here, the image that you will cast out when you go out for your first internship, when you go out for your first job, it's very important that it be one of excellence, because people take note. And you'd be amazed at how much of a network it is, whether in DC or here. People know other people, and if your work ethic is horrible, they talk about it, and you'll be known by that. If your work ethic is one that is solid and that's stellar, one in which you're known for putting 100%, even if you don't necessarily care for the issue that you deal with, it speaks volumes for you. And so if I could leave that as an introduction, it would definitely be that, in everything that you do it with excellence, because it is. This is your name on the line. So.
I'm Ben Stelzus. I'm an 07 grad, and I studied politics, like all of you, I assume, and philosophy, which I think actually was a very nice combination. Maybe not in terms of helping me in the real world, giving me sort of like a practical element to my degree, but it helped me think about ideas a lot and develop my sort of critical thinking component, which is important. While I was here, a couple things that I did, I guess, that I look back on and think, well, that was actually important or a good idea, and maybe you all ought to be thinking about some of these things as well. But I did a study abroad. I went to Oxford, which was a great program. It was nothing like some of my peers, I guess, and other friends who did things like go to Australia or some other exotic place and like go scuba diving or something like that. I didn't do any of those things, but it was very hard, and I was in the library a lot. But it was a very good experience, and if you have something like that you can lean on when you go to take the next step, and somebody looks at that resume and they say, oh, this person, they chose something challenging and interesting. That's important. So that was I think a good move that I took when I was here. I also I took a class the late Cliff Jones actually taught, and it was a course that introduced us to politics in Harrisburg mostly, because that was his sphere of influence. But in that class, they sort of taught a lot of sort of professional tactics, and sort of introduced you to people, and I got a lot of exposure in Harrisburg. And then off of that, I did an internship actually at a lobbying shop, Greenlee Partners in Harrisburg, which again was a good experience, and I sort of, that was my first taste of politics, I guess, or real taste, I guess, in the real world. So those are some of the important things that I did while I was here. I'm trying to think of other relevant things that I first stage in life. But in terms of what those things meant to me, what I realize now looking back is that you all are learning about politics, which is true and important, and you're learning important things because you read about how Congress works and things like that. When you leave here, what you will realize is that the skills that were important were your ability to think and to write, and sort of help you think about what you want to do next. But you'll see quickly that the real world is very different from college, believe it or not. It's actually quite different, unfortunately. And so what you want to be doing is thinking about ways to get insights into that world. Because when I was here, I think I had no clue about what was actually going on in the world. And that was fine to some extent, but just realize that you have that deficit. So I was looking at the questions that Dr. Lauerman sent around for us to think about, and I think one of them is like, what are some things that you can do to take the next step or to develop yourself? And one thing I thought about that I would recommend to all of you is to find a paper that you like, and it should be a national paper, I think, and read it daily. Just get in that habit of reading, especially if you're a junior or a senior and you're starting to move on, you start to think about what you want to do next. Read that paper, because if you want to work in DC or you want to work in Congress, you want to be able you need to start thinking about the things that they think about. So I would encourage you to start reading news, not just your favorite blog or something, but something a little bit more substantial than In any case, when I left here in 2007, and I moved to DC. I had brothers down there, and I was thinking about, well, what do I want to do? And at the time, I didn't really know. But there was an opening in my hometown congressman's office, and so I applied. It worked out nicely, and they offered a job. And then I was there for 4 years. And while I was there, I learned about sort of a myriad of policy issues, from agriculture to education to what they're doing in random parts of the world, and I met with all kinds of strange people, which was really great. At the same time, I studied business at Georgetown, which was a good experience, but not as great. Certainly not as great as coming to Messiah. I learned a lot, but it's hard to go to school at night, and it's not very fun. But that was also a good experience and sort of a down payment for the future in terms of where I hope to be in a couple years. In any case, when I finished the program, I decided that I wanted to leave DC, and so I came back to my hometown of Lancaster, where I live now, and started working for the Department of Public Welfare, which is a big agency that runs programs like Medicaid, food stamps. We have cash programs, we've got intellectual disability programs, and all kinds of things. And there I work in the policy office for the secretary. So what that basically means is the governor has an agenda, Governor Corbett in this case, and then you have people who are full-time professionals who have been working in government all their lives, and you need to figure out a way to mesh those views together, the objectives together, or to make sure everybody's on the same page. And so policy is, in some sense, helping to craft or to direct the ship in the way that your leader, the governor, would like to go. And I guess I'll step back from that for a second just to say, and that's like a policy job. Breon knows this. When you work policy, if this is something you're interested in policy of any sort, really, be it in Congress or in an agency, it's your job to understand your boss's direction, and then figure out ways to sort of implement that into law or into the real world in some way or shape or form. And so it can be very interesting. It can mean that you pull in you get perspectives from outside groups, from experts, from your boss, and you try to put something together that's coherent and helpful, actually. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. So that's what I spent my time doing. I've been working for the state for a year now. I've learned a lot there. I've learned a ton in DC, and we can talk about, I guess, which I'd recommend to you, or which I think is better or more interesting. But the agencies, you really get a different perspective when you think about working for an agency versus working for a legislature. And so I would encourage you, if you really want to get into government, to think about what the differences mean, because they really do different things, and the experience is different. So you want to consider those things as you look to your next steps. I think that covered it. We need the rest of the Q&A.
Hey everyone, my name is Anika Wolf. I was an 07 grad then, and I was politics on the international track here with a minor in Spanish. During my time here, I was Dr. Lauerman's research assistant for a year. I did an internship with the Pennsylvania Department of State, and then I also spent a semester in Ecuador and a J-term in Mexico. So kind of hit through those 4 things that Abby was talking about earlier as far as different experiences. I would say that 2 of the most important things that I learned coming out of Messiah was Dr. Lauerman's research methods class, all of it, and then how to write an analytical paper in as few words as possible, which Dr. Harles and Dr. Curry were experts at drilling into us. Post-graduation, I joined the Peace Corps, and I spent almost 2.5 years in southern Thailand working in an English teacher training program. Aside from kind of what I was doing at a professional level, I was learning problem-solving skills in the very much real world, as in there's a tarantula the size of my hand in my bathroom, what do you do? So that was 2.5 years of learning and growing every day, and a lot of time spent in 100-degree heat thinking, okay, how am I actually going to put this on a resume and translate it back into what I hope to get into. I hoped when I would come back that I would move out to DC and find something in the international realm, and I was interested in moving more into health and healthcare aspects. What I actually found when I came back at the height of the recession was a low-paid assistant job for a struggling nonprofit, and learned some really valuable lessons coming out of that. Just that sometimes that is what is available, and there can be growth and learning in that also. But I also learned that I did not want to stay in that, and so kept looking and learned just how long and arduous the job search can be. And I think that that's probably one of the main things that I would tell all of you coming, especially seniors that are coming out. It will be long, it will be hard. You might not find what you're looking for right away, but you just have to keep at it. And eventually you will find something that you are interested in and that you like. For me, that happened kind of, I think, 4 or 5 months after I had started at the nonprofit, and was able to make the leap over to my current office, which is in the Department of State, although I am a government contractor. We can talk a bit more about contractors in a bit. And I work for the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, which is all the money that the U.S. gives to international HIV and AIDS goes through that plan, and my office is the headquarters for that. Within that, I work for our Office of Research and Science. If you're thinking about government jobs, you will need to get used to acronyms. So I work for ORS and PEPFAR and the DOS. On a daily basis, I am writing briefing memos and decision memos for the ambassador that leads our office. I am working with my supervisor on policy. I am setting up meetings to try, a lot of what I work on are these randomized controlled trials that my office is funding. So I am working with our partner agencies to move those forward. It requires a lot of diplomatic skill and just trying to get everyone in the same place to all talk about the same things. As I did say, I am a contractor, which is a way that my office uses to be able to have a bit more flexibility in hiring, and that's something that if you're looking at going into government, especially on the agency side, I would encourage you to look for contracting positions. It can be a way in, and for my office at least, we don't advertise any of the contracting positions, which is about half of the positions in the office, on USA Jobs or any of the other government websites. So if you're not kind of looking for some of those positions, you might, if you're only looking on USA Jobs or AView, things like that, you might miss some of those positions that you would be interested in. On a daily basis, I walk into my office, I log in and read through my emails and thank Dr. Larman and Dr. Harles for the research methods that allow me to understand the discussions that are taking place around me, and then for the writing skills that allow me to, when my supervisor says, write a briefing memo for the ambassador on this topic, he needs it by 2:00 p.m. today, to be able to sit there and write a page memo that tells the ambassador something that he doesn't already know about an issue that we want him to then go and espouse a policy to in a meeting. I will say that I did start out in a program support role. So I had 3 senior technical advisors that I supported, and it was more of a do whatever they need you to do type role. But through that, I did make as much effort as possible to volunteer for projects, to make myself available, and when I was given things that were more than setting up meetings or calls, to put 120% into it. And after the end of my first year, my supervisor invited me to move up within the research and science side of things, and so that's how I came to be where I am today, doing a lot of more technical and substantive work, and just really enjoying every day that I'm at the office.
So you all talked about the arduous process, I guess, of looking for jobs. Practically, where, like, in your experience, where did you guys look for jobs? Like, whether it be, like, did you guys mainly network with people that you knew, or did you use the internet? Did you talk to your professors? Like, what kind of stuff do you guys do to actually find these opportunities that you ended up using?
Well, I think there are think about this as two different approaches. One is the legislative side, and the other is the administrative side. Now on the administrative side, but I think you need to do it differently depending on which track you want to do it. I can't speak to what it takes to get a job in an agency, but I can speak to what it takes to get a job on Capitol Hill or in some sort of form like that, and that's networking. That's how I got my job down there, and then again here. But it's that and networking through an internship. So I think they're both networking really. So that's if you want to do the legislative side, get an internship and start networking with that internship. For you guys.
So I think for me it was, I wanted something internationally focused, and I had a growing interest in health, and so I was searching for organizations like that. But the State Department alone is enormous, and it's just one agency, one small part of something much larger. And so I hadn't yet come across the website for my current organization, but I was simultaneously networking. All my friends and contacts knew that I was looking, and they knew kind of what I was looking for. And a friend of a friend knew about the posting in my current position, and it got passed down through the chain, and that's how I found it and applied, and used my experiences and the skills that I was able to present on my resume to get that kind of foot in the door. So I think whatever you do, it has to be multi-pronged, and it has to kind of cast as wide a net as possible, because it's a big world, and there's a lot of places, some of which are currently hiring, some of which might be hiring in a few months, some of which might not be hiring right now, and so it's important, I think, not to get locked into any one kind of, I want to work for this place right now in this specific role.
And I would say, and I hate to muddy up, but my experience, I think everybody's experience may be different. Sometimes we try to pay, and I'm not saying anybody on the panel is, but we try to pay, we do this, this, and this, and it's going to guarantee your success in. To be honest, I can talk on a personal level with this later. I turned down a job that because of my personal belief, it was well paying. Oh my goodness, it was well paying. And I turned it down, spiraled into the 6 months of unemployment. During that time, I was searching on different listservs, like we have Tom Manitos on the Hill that they always have openings. I was looking at the Senate Employment Bulletin and the House Employment Bulletins. I was looking at different nonprofits. I was looking at USA Jobs. Ironically, how I got my internship is my mother had always taught me that you need to dress for where you want to go, and always carry a resume with you. My grandmother was a commissioner in her district, and I went with her to a swearing-in ceremony for some of the naval academies, where the congressmen choose their students that they will endorse for the Naval Academy. And I dressed in a three-piece suit, look crazy. I don't have a job, I don't have any sort of interview, But I took my resume with me and just had it in my pocket. While I was there, I happened to run into the staff director or the chief of staff of Congressman Wynn. He asked me where I work because he saw my suit. I don't work anywhere. Gave him my resume, and I immediately got a call back to be able to go in for an internship. Now, that being said, I worked my behind off in that internship. And it takes work. As she said, you build on the experiences when you get in the door. From there, how I got into Senator Nelson's office was as I would attend meetings, as I was there doing work on behalf of the congressman. My work ethic spoke for me. And so that kind of vouched in a network way in some areas where maybe a piece of paper, somebody looking at it could not have. That opened up the doors to more. So as you continue to prove yourself in your work, as you continue to cultivate, your expertise. Even if we want to take it as we're in Messiah College in a biblical sense, the Bible says a man's gift will make room for him. So if you work the gift that you're good at, put all of it, your excellence into it, it immediately begins to open the doors that you may need. And so there's no one size fits all that will get somebody into the door, but it's a mix of both your diligence in continuing to pursue and search. There were times in that 6-month process, it was like, ain't nobody hiring. You know what? I don't feel like applying to anything. And Megan is right. Applying for a job is almost a full-time job itself, because you're always putting a new cover letter. My cover letters that I have on file now about 47, just on one hard drive, 47 different resumes. And all of those cover letters are different. And all of those cover letters speak not only to my experience, but what I plan to add to the company that I'm joining, what I plan to add to the congressional office, which means I've done my research on what they believe in. And so, putting together that diligence and putting together as well, then once you get in the door, that hard work ethic, it continues to open up doors in a networking manner. So that's
Another question?
Carlos is asking a question.
That's right. Like my old ways. I think I know the answer to this question in 2 cases. Rebecca's, because she told me a few hours ago, and Benji, because I've had this conversation. But I don't know Breon's and Megan, so I'm going to try it anyway.
Oh my.
It seems to me that the job market is extraordinarily competitive now. And if you're talking about working in Washington, D.C., you've got a lot of people from all over the place, very high-profile institutions who you are competing with for these positions. So I guess my question is about your experience at Messiah and how that either you see that as a help or a hindrance in that climate. Another way of putting it is this way. Knowing now what you do about the nature of jobs, especially in Washington, would you, number 1, choose to come to Messiah again? And number 2, would you choose to study politics again? All four folks, because I'm safe on the outside, but I don't know about the inside.
So I would say, just drawing from, so my interview at my current organization, the line that they pulled out to ask me about was not Messiah College, what is that and why did you go there? It was, I see on your internship that you were working, at the Department of State in Pennsylvania, and you were approving grants up to $1 million. That seems like a lot of responsibility. What were you doing? And I was able to say, I started out just kind of helping people that were approving grants, and in that 12-week internship, I built up to the point where I was pre-approving them myself and then passing them on to a supervisor for final approval. And that really caught their attention. So I would say that it's not so, that it's very much about the skills that you make and the way that you're able to present that to your employer to show that this is what I actually did and here's what I can do, than it is about the name recognition. Yes, I would come back to Messiah and I would be a politics major again. For the writing and for research methods, it literally helps me every day. I sit in 4 and 5 hour meetings with scientists that talk about study design and statistical significance, and I understand what they're talking about. I might not be able to run the calculations myself, but I can follow the conversation and I can then go from that room and I can write up a paper about it, and it makes sense and it's readable and it's usable for my supervisor. So for those 2 skills alone, absolutely. Plus you're here.
Would I come back to Messiah? What was the second part of the question?
Would you choose politics?
Would I study politics? Yes and yes. For me, Messiah was integral in me developing as a person. And I hope this statement doesn't cause controversy. Hopefully I say it right. Realistically, the role of college is not purely just the attainment of academic knowledge, because the truth is you can go to any library down the street and learn. College gives you character building. It teaches you how to work with people. It teaches you then as well how to process that information, and it teaches you how to rigorously defend what you believe in. Those are the values that any college should provide, and Messiah provided that for me. I was telling the people at lunch, it was no secret for me. I was and still am a Democrat, maybe a independent that leans Democrat, where a lot of my colleagues were Republican. Not looking at Cindy in particular. It was very great, very great. But look at the current situation we're dealing with in Washington. Messiah was the best place where I could have learned how to get past myself and my views and learn how to work towards broader issues. Messiah it was very integral in that growth. So yes, I would come back to Messiah. I think in the politics department, that's the one I can speak the best to. The professors are, for me, I found them to be diverse in their political ideology and somewhat ambiguous. You can't really peg them down to any one hard ideology, and I think that was a benefit to me in formulating my thoughts, formulating my ideas, and I would choose politics again because it was great, it was substantive, and it taught me writing-wise how to be concise. For Dr. Curry, and thank you, as you're not here, but Dr. Curry definitely wanted to give him a shout out because he taught me how to be concise. He gives you a thick book with a lot of loaded information and forces you to synthesize it into 2 pages, or he docks points. And I got a lot of points docked over my time, eventually learning how to be concise, but it's very important, those skills that you learn. So I would come back to Messiah. I don't want to do undergrad all over again, but I would come back to Messiah, should it?
My answers are yes, and I wouldn't pick a college because I think necessarily the reason I would pick a college again is not because I know it's going to line me up with a job. So, I'm not saying yes because this is going to give you the best shot at a great job. I'm saying yes because there are more things going than that. Would I do politics again? The only regret that I have to some extent is that I had the humanities down. I didn't have the other component, which I later got in business school. So the first time I sat in an accounting class, it was like I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Everybody else did because they were business majors or whatever. I want to tell this story before we're out of time. I had an intern when I worked in DC for a member, for Joe Pitts, who was not particularly, I'll just say what, she wasn't particularly impressive. She wasn't the most professional person ever. And what else can I say about her? But the thing is this, she really knew what she wanted. She wanted to work on Capitol Hill. That's what she wanted. She knew that, she loved it, she loved her work, she worked hard, she did her absolute best. And if you had asked me if I had sat in an interview with this person, is this person going to get a job on Capitol Hill? I would have said no. But she came down and she interned in my office for a year. She was in an office before me, I think for a year, not pretty enough, but in office. She worked at night, not like, I think she worked at Target or something, and she just, to survive. And I have no idea how she did it, but she got a job working for a committee, and I actually saw her over the weekend. I was down in DC, and she loves it, and she's doing really well, and it's, anyway, the point is, I think the big thing is if you have some idea, and you probably don't, because I didn't know when I was in the course, but once you figure out what you want, if you really stick at it, and you really drive, she sort of is my inspiration in some sense, because I don't know if she has business necessarily doing it, but in fact she's really great. She's great to have around, she does great work. She just had to really work at it. It took her 2 years.
Any last question, burning curiosity?
I've heard a lot about how you've got so much work, and I can imagine that as soon as you got out of college, it was a lot of work and trying to get jobs in general. But then, how did your personal lives go after that? Did you get married? Did you did you have lives after?
The hills. Well,
Exact same. Not married, but have a great personal life. There's life after college, and not all fun ends post-graduation. And I do sometimes work overtime, but I love my job and I'm fine with that. And when I'm not working, I have a lot of fun.
My personal life is single. Well, I have a girlfriend. We'll see about marriage here soon, but I'm not in any particular rush there. I stay busy just because I don't know, I'm one of those people, I need to stay active. I just stay wired, many different things to do. So there's my professional life, and then I'm very involved in my church. And as well, I'm a musician, and so sometimes I've been afforded the privilege of being able to play for a couple of groups around the country. As far as outside of me, on the Hill, there's a very vibrant party life. They work hard and they play very hard. So no, life doesn't end just because you finished college and you're older. I won't say you're old. And you're older. I will say though, time seemed like it flew very quickly. Doesn't seem like it's enough time necessarily in a day to get everything done. But definitely that's my experience.
No indictment on marriage. I think it's probably great, but I'm not married either. I think you probably have a good job if you get married. The social life is great in DC. I think it's probably not as great in Harrisburg where I am now. I was down. Yeah, I don't know who's here and where you all live and everything like that. I don't want to say anything offensive, but really, I do DC. I pushed DC and I left DC and I'm glad I did, but it was a really good place to meet a lot of great people. And actually this weekend I was down there and it was like one place to the next place, meeting friends and there were a couple parties and so it was an awesome time. And if you go down there and you're interested in politics, and if you are interested in politics, that's where you should go in my opinion. But it really is vibrant down there. I haven't been to a place where there are so many 20-somethings who are engaged and interested in the world. You'd be hard pressed to find another place like that. Certainly Harrisburg is not like that. That's true. So anyway, does that answer your question?
All right. Can I ask a question? Sure. Here, actually. So I'm actually headed back to grad school fairly soon. And just wondered, since you are current students, I presume you are experts at being students. It's been a long time since I graduated. I'm a little bit scared to go back. What would you recommend for someone going back to school?
Somebody said don't do it. Stay away! Oh God, stay away.
Or is there no hope for me?
Does anybody know what they want to do or think about? Look at the panel or think, I know what I want to do. This is it. Nobody.
He does.
What's that?
Oh.
Well, the follow-up question, of course, is what do you want to do?
Right.
I want to do international law.
International law.
Law.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Go to school next?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay.